Y'all, it's summertime. That means long, lazy days by the pool, baseball games, and those romantic summer nights after the sun sets and it gets a little cooler after a super hot day. It also might mean that your writing project has completely stalled. You haven't even looked at it in months. And if that is you, I want to offer you some ways to get yourself out of that summer slump, get back into your project, and find the love and passion you had for that book once again. I'm going to give you 7 tips for getting out of the summer slump for writing. Stay tuned. If you are fed up with trying to stumble through this writing project with no idea where you're going or when you'll get there, you need a plan. And I have got the tool for you. Right now, you can download the Writing Plan Calculator. It's going to give you a timeline for your whole book project, the goals that you need to hit along the way, and the flexibility to adjust when your schedule changes. You can download it right now at pageandpodium.com/plan. The summer slump is real. Unfortunately, especially if you're someone who likes to be outside, if your kids are in a lot of activities, it is really, really hard to sit down at the computer and write. It just is not something that's very appealing when there's such a beautiful day outside and you just want to be out enjoying all of that summer fun. So the first thing I want you to know is that this is a totally normal thing. The 7 tips I'm going to give you today are not only tips that I have used to help my clients get unstuck, they're also tips that I have used for myself. Every single one of us has some version of this summer slump where something comes up, it derails our progress a bit, and it's just really hard to get back on track. So 7 tips is a lot. I don't usually do that many, so let's get into it so this video doesn't get too long. The first tip that I want to give you is to remember that this break may have been meant to be. Now, I know it's hard to see that, especially if you're someone who really has felt like you're struggling, like you're frustrated with how long this process is taking. It can be really hard to embrace a break, especially a planned break. But I want to compare this to something that I think is very, very similar, which is essentially any kind of a long-term goal. And let's think about the long-term goal of a diet. So we are working right now with Gretchen Norling Holmes on her amazing memoir. It'll be out later this fall. And Gretchen lost over 100 pounds. Now, one of the things that I found so interesting in her memoir is that she really kind of talks about watching this, steady progress and kind of watching for times to fall off. And one of the things that I find so interesting is that I think this kind of steady progress that also has these starts and stops in it is so similar to writing or really any long-term project. Now, if you have ever tried to lose a lot of weight or if you've ever been successful at losing a lot of weight, you know that there are going to be days that you just want a couple pieces of chocolate cake. You just want them. And Gretchen talks about that in her book, actually, is like some days you have such a craving and you just really want that delicious food. Now, we have 2 choices when we go ahead and eat that delicious food when we're on a diet. 1, we can decide we're a failure, give up, quit. Or 2, we can embrace it and say, okay, but what is this life without a little bit of fun, a little bit of indulgence? I did this for myself, and now I'm going to get back on track for myself. Well, I find that this actually is true physiologically for dieters as well as mentally for writers and anyone else that is working on a long-term project. For dieters, when we do that cheat day or we fall off a little bit, there is great research that shows that actually our body really appreciates that we are giving our body something that it really wants, that we're kind of boosting those calories for the day, and that in a lot of ways that can help make what comes afterwards even more effective. Well, that is true for writing too. When we have been writing, especially if you've been working on it for any amount of time, even in just a couple months, your brain is going to start to get fatigued. Writing is creative, it is inventive, You are asking your brain to do something that we don't really do every single day for most of us, and you may not have really done it before. So the first thing I want you to do is embrace the idea that this summer slump, that falling off your writing goals, actually might have served you really well. And I will tell you, I see this when I start to pay attention. I will see this in myself. I will start to see that, oh, do you know what? Actually, when I was watching that movie with my friends, I was kind of thinking about this concept I wanted to write about and how it relates. Or when I went to that Little League game, it did kind of make me think there are similarities between this concept and what I was seeing with the little adorable little kids on the field. There are all kinds of ways that getting out of the house, getting away from the computer can actually make your writing way better, from just re-energizing you about the project to actually giving you more insights about the world that you can then pack into your new writing. So number one, we are going to embrace the fact that actually breaks can be a really good thing. That maybe this was exactly what you needed. Maybe all you did was follow your body's natural rhythm, your brain's natural rhythm, and now you are getting that signal that it's time to get back in. So first thing, let's embrace it. The second thing I want to bring up, very related to the first, is to keep in mind that any big project like this, it's a long game. I know there are gurus all over the internet who are telling you that you can write your book in 2 weeks or 3 months even. Really short periods of time, in my experience of working with dozens of authors, to write your first book. You just probably aren't going to. Most people need at least 6 months, if not actually quite a bit longer. So how can we think about that this is a long game and really remind ourselves that we were probably never going to go through the whole entire manuscript draft without ever taking a break? That was probably never going to happen, right? You're learning new things, you're finding new ways to be in the world, you're developing new routines. So that's the other thing I want you to remind yourself. And we have worked with some elite athletes that have shared this with me that's really kind of made me think about, again, the similarities between building your body in particular ways and getting those words on the page. So we worked with one guy, an Olympian, who really talked about how when he was in college, he wanted to just power through his workouts. Now, he was doing all kinds of other activities. He was a college student as well, of course. And he shares this example of a time that he was in, training with his fellow athletes. And he was trying to do bench presses. And he really was not even getting close to what he was normally able to do. And it was a lighter weight than he normally did. And it felt so hard. So he was trying to push through. He was like, I'm going to do it. Well, his coach comes over and says, go home. Go home. You need to rest. And of course, this is a young college athlete. He's like, absolutely not. I am powering through this workout. I am not weak. I'm going to get it done. And what his coach told him was, when you are powering through, first of all, in sports, you're probably going to get hurt. But he said, when you are powering through, you are actually doing a disservice to your body. You are making it worse, because rather than just listening to the way that things are going, you are so determined to hit your goals that you are not seeing the way that you're sabotaging your own goals. That is true with writing too. This is a long game. And I talked about this a few weeks ago. A lot of times when we fail to remind ourselves that this is a long game, that there are going to be breaks, the inevitable result is that we start to feel a lot of shame. We start to really feel, we start to beat ourselves up. We start to speak really negatively to ourselves. And just like with that athlete who needed to go home and rest, we are not allowing our brain to have true rest, because the whole time we're taking this break, we're just shaming ourselves. So as you are struggling with the summer slump, as you're coming out of it, I just want you to really keep in mind, write it on a piece of paper and tape it to your office, that this is normal. Every long-term goal is going to have breaks. It's going to have things that feel like setbacks. But as I said in my tip number 1, it might not even be a setback. So let's embrace the fact that you are doing something so big that it is going to take probably a year. Cool. Let's embrace it. Let's lean into it, and let's not be mean to ourselves about the fact that we had to take a break to go on vacation with our family or watch our kids play sports or just enjoy the sunshine. Those are good things. Number 3, this is another continuation of these first two, and you won't be surprised to hear me say this, friends. The third thing I want you to do is be kind to yourself. And as the first step in that, you have got to be aware of your thoughts. So, I've kind of gotten at this, but I haven't said it explicitly in this video yet, and I think it's important to say this. When you are hearing things in your head or even feeling things in your body that tell you that you are a failure, that you messed up, that you have fallen off, that you never finish anything, whatever it is that you hear in your mind, that is not productive. You are never going to shame yourself into pursuing a goal. But here's where it gets kind of tricky, because a lot of times we will be saying those things to ourselves and we don't even notice it. So I think particularly if you have felt that you're having trouble getting back on, but when I said we've got to watch your thoughts, you thought, oh, I don't think anything like that about myself. I want you to pause, to give yourself some quiet and some peace. And when you think about your writing, I want you to just focus in on what exactly are you saying to yourself. Because sometimes it's really disappointing. So when you are paying attention to these thoughts, I want you to really dial in. Are you speaking negatively to yourself? Are you telling yourself that you are a failure, that you've made a big mess of this, that you just aren't a writer? What are you saying to yourself? Because I want you to dial it in and I want you to give yourself another option. How else can you think about this? What if a friend of yours came to you and said, oh my gosh, I was trying to do this book. I care about it so much. I actually was really enjoying it. And then June hit and all this stuff was happening. And now I just don't even know if I should even try. You know what I bet? I bet you would not say, you're right, you shouldn't try. You really messed this up. I bet you wouldn't say that, right? But why do we say those things to ourselves? I don't know. I do it too. Instead of that, I want you to turn it around. What would you say to that friend? I bet you would say, you know, that happens to everybody, actually. I hope you had fun during the summer, at least. I hope you didn't just beat yourself up the whole time. How can I help? How can I get you, back on track? How can I support you? Because I know this project matters to you. And once we start being aware of our thoughts, we can respond in that way, right? We can see ourselves as that friend of ours who is always beating themselves up and who we just cannot stand to see talk about themselves that way. We can intervene. We can be our biggest supporters. But first, we got to be aware of our thoughts. All right, so speaking of how can we keep ourselves accountable? How can we make a plan? This is really important. I don't think it's as important as the mindset stuff, which is why that's where I started. But let's go ahead and get back into how we're going to do this plan. One thing that I see really often is that if people start out their writing journey with a really detailed plan, which by the way, I recommend that you do that, where you know kind of when you're writing, how often you're writing, how long you're writing, how long the span of your book is going to be. You've kind of mapped it all out. I find that when people fall off of that journey, they will often be really resistant to changing the original plan. They want to get back on track, by which they mean they want to somehow magically get back to where they think they should have been at the end of July, right? What we're not going to do is that. We're going to be realistic and kind to ourselves. So what I want you to do is rather than trying to catch back up with whatever, let's face it, whatever arbitrary goal you had set for yourself originally on when you were going to finish, let's replan. Let's regroup. How much do you have left? When are you going to work on it? And how long? How are you going to keep yourself regular on this? Now, we have a writing plan calculator that's a pretty new download. If you have not grabbed it yet, I think it's really cool. You can download a copy, save it into your Google Drive by going to pageandpodium.com/plan. And I want you to just start from scratch. You have done however much of your book you have done, but now we need to recommit to what you're going to do moving forward. It might be that during the school year, you are really able to write, from 8 to 9:30 when your kids, they go to school, but you don't have to be at work yet. But it's no surprise that that doesn't work in the summer, right? So let's sit back down. Let's think about for the next couple of months, what times are going to work for you? Do you need to carve out some Sunday afternoon time maybe? Do you need to think about, afternoon when everybody's taking their nap? Do you need to think about how can you make sure that you are, ready and energized at that point to jump back in? What is your new plan? And how can we adjust what the old plan was so that our plan continues to serve us rather than giving us a reason to beat ourselves up? That's going to start with a plan. Write down, when are you going to write during the week? What are the times that work for you? And embrace that as your current plan. The other plan, it served us. It isn't serving us anymore. So we're going to let it go and move on to a new plan. Okay, the other thing that can happen sometimes is, especially if you have been working on this book, if you were working on it for a couple of months before the summer slowdown hit, sometimes it's easy to lie to ourselves about what we had gotten done before. So you might be a person that is maybe more optimistic and you think like, oh, but I'm almost done. It's not a big deal. I don't need a plan. That's not going to work. You do need a plan. Or you might be somebody who, this is like me, when you try to remember what you had done, you way underestimate, right? It's like, oh, I hadn't even hardly started and I already fell off. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a reality check. So this is not something you should do on a day that you're beating yourself up and you're feeling bad about yourself. But on a day when you are feeling, kind to yourself and supportive, I want you to go back into your writing folder. And I want you to look through everything that you have already done. And what we're going to do is take an inventory. So by inventory, I want you to get out a notepad, notebook, whatever you like to write on, and then I want you to pull your computer up. Look at those files. We're going to write chapter 1. Oh, wow, this is a finished draft. Oh, chapter 2 as well. We're going to really get real with ourselves, right? Chapter 3, oh, maybe that's a little bit shakier. Sure, we've got, some notes or an outline or whatever, but we have a lot of work to do on chapter 3. Chapter 4 looks okay. Nothing in chapter 5 and 6. Oh, 7's outlined. You get the idea. We're going to go through and we're going to be really super honest with ourselves about what we have done. And by honest, I mean we're not exaggerating in the good way and we're not exaggerating in the bad way. We are just looking with curiosity and a neutral approach to what we have done. What that usually is going to do for you is it's going to help you be just much more realistic. It's going to help you realize that we do need to regroup and how much we need to regroup and in what way we're going to regroup. That can be so motivating. So go in there, get your inventory. That is going to help you be much more realistic about what this summer slump really means for your project. All right, tip number 6. This is a fun one. It's summer after all. If you have fallen off because of summer slump, it's because you were craving that fun, right? Now, usually we're thinking of the fun in the sun, but we can also make our writing project fun again, right? You started it. I bet you were really enjoying working on it when you first started. But too often when we fall off of our plan, we really get so contracted in terms of what am I supposed to be working on? Chapter 4, it's a mess. I've got to get in there. We're not going to do that. Once you have fallen off a writing goal, you have got to give your brain some reinforcement that this is actually something that you want to do and it's something you enjoy doing. There is nothing like falling off a goal or a plan to convince your brain that you shouldn't even try anymore. So let's reconvince your brain that you absolutely should try, that you want to try. The way we're going to do this is we are going to pick a scene or a concept or a story or whatever it may be that you are looking forward to writing. Now, this does not have to be much, and frankly, it doesn't even need to make the final cut of your manuscript. All we are trying to do is, again, give your brain that reinforcement that writing is fun, that you enjoy writing, and that it's something you want to do. So what is a scene that you have kind of been thinking about? What is an idea that you have really wanted to talk about? Maybe you even have talked about on social media. What is firing you up right now? Even if it's not the next thing in the sequence in your book, can you write chapter 19? Can you write a few scenes from, different chapters throughout your book? How can you remind yourself that you love to write? It's not going to be by forcing yourself to write that next thing that you've been procrastinating about. Instead, let's pick the most fun, the easiest scene, idea, or story, and let's start there. Let's give ourselves that little dopamine boost of writing something that we really want to write, feeling really good about it. And the last tip, you will not be surprised to hear me say this, I want you to re-recruit your support. Now, maybe you decide that a writing coach is what you need or a book coach is what you need at this point. Emily or I would be happy to speak with you or any of the amazing book coaches out there. Even if that's not what you're looking for, though, you still need support. One thing that I see really often is that when people start getting going on their book, they will mention it to a few select people. There is nothing worse than when those people continue to ask you how your book's going and you have to tell them that you fell off of your goal or your plan. We're gonna just rip off the Band-Aid. I want you to go to either those same people if you did that, or new people if you haven't ever told anybody you're working on the book. I want you to find some people and I want you to say, hey, I've been working on this book. It was going okay, and now it really is not. I'm discouraged. I fell off from the summer, I had the vacation, then I had the t-ball games, whatever it might be. But I am committed to being back on board with this book. And can you help me? Can you support me? I know we hate asking for help. Well, I do at least. Can you support me? And I want you to be really specific. You've made that plan. We did that in the previous step, right? So I want you to say, next week my goal is to write on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, between 8 and 9 in the morning. Would you mind just checking in and just asking how it's going? And just because I know if you're going to check in with me, I will make myself do it. Sometimes we just need that little external validation boost to get our habits back on track. So I want you to pull in your support system and I want you to be really, really honest. It is not fun to say that you set a goal, you set a plan, and you didn't stick to it. It's not fun. No one likes to do that. But remember that when you do that, you're also modeling for other people that it is okay to be kind to yourself when you don't hit a goal that you wanted to hit. It's okay. It happens. It literally happens to everyone. There is no reason to keep it a secret. So be that role model, right? Show others that it is okay to fall off of a goal, but then decide this was important to me. I'm going to regroup and I'm going to get back on. That's really, really important. That is a special thing you're able to do. So ask for that support. Ask for that accountability because it's going to help you bring those habits back and feel really good about the project you're working on. All right. Well, I hope that these 7 tips have really helped as we are coming, into the end of July, into August. I know there's so many fun things out there and I don't want you to miss out on them, either because you're locked in your office at your computer or because you're locked in your brain feeling bad that you fell off your goals. Let's not do that. Be kind to yourself, regroup, set a new plan, bring in some accountability, and I cannot wait to hear how these tips work for you. Let me know how your book's going, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Happy writing. If you're writing your first book, I bet you already know you need a plan. But the hardest thing about making a plan for your first book is you don't have the experience to know how to plan. And that is why I put together our newest free download, the Writing Plan Calculator. With this calculator, you are easily going to be able to figure out a realistic timeline, realistic weekly goals, and the flexibility you're going to need for this long-term project. You can download it now at pageandpodium.com/plan, and you are going to knock this book out of the park. I can't wait to read it.